Solid copper shootout! Hey guys, Gary here. Thanks for checking in. So if you've been following along for a little while, I've been collecting up some ammunition, 9mm solid copper bullets that I was going to do some testing with. Now, those things ain't fucking cheap. So I'm not going to get hundreds of them and, run them through a bazillion different tests. I just needed a medium to test them in one against the other. So I didn't do intermediate barriers because solid copper, like bonded bullets, performs well in intermediate barriers. So rather than spend a bunch more money on intermediate barriers and ammo, money that I didn't have because these aren't funded by anything, so it's not like there are channel sponsors or I sell the information, it's just me spending money on stuff. So I tried to keep it to a minimum. And so I really just needed to check the bullets against each other for are they made quality? And they all were at the cost of solid copper ammo. I'd expect them to be made well, although there were some differences that were interesting, and we'll take note of those. And then we were going to shoot them into some gelatin. We just did bare gelatin, not through layers of denim and shit, because, well, like shooting people through jean jackets. I don't fucking see anybody in a jean jacket, but I guess that's a thing. We could just randomly pick other materials, but fact is, it's not like I don't see people wearing jean jackets, so I'm not gonna fucking buy denim. I can't use denim. I don't own any jeans. Anyway, so we just shot it into bare gelatin. Gonna check the velocity, check the depth of penetration in the gelatin, and also going to check to see how big the bullet is. And then we were just going to compare them and see if anything, stood out. And I suspected they would be close to each other because there's only so much performance difference you can get from 115 grain solid copper bullet in 9mm out of a 4-inch barrel. Used the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 compact, aka the 2.19. Had a hollow sun on the top of it, checking that thing out too. And we shot some rounds into gelatin. Some of the ammo I only had a handful of rounds for, and some of them I had whole boxes of 50. So I had more opportunities to do some other stuff with some of the brands, but not all of the brands. So we tried to keep it to velocity and what it did in the gel. However, the fellow that brought the chronograph, it wouldn't work no matter what we did. On the rainy day we were using it, it just kept saying error. So we didn't have the velocity measurements either. But we still shot them into gelatin. We still measured the depth in the gelatin, and we still took them out and checked them out afterwards. The ammo, I got a list that we used, was Barnes Tac Xpd, Supervel SCHP, that's solid copper hollow point, Black Hills Tac-XP, Corbon Dpx, ASIM SDX, Gorilla Silverback, Defiant Tcx. We were going to do two other non-115 grains, Defiant Tcx S, which is a subsonic round at 135 grains, and I was going to do some of the G2 Research RIP rounds, which are 80 grain or something like that. But my source for them never came through, and I didn't have any to shoot. So we didn't put the RIP round in there. So we have one oddball weight. We'll throw it in there in the testing, but just know that that isn't like a head-to-head. It's just, an appendix, something else to add. So as you can see right here in the chart, hopefully I'm crafty enough to edit that chart in afterwards. We had the brand, model, all of them but one are plus P. I measured the overall length of the ammo in the case. I mostly was doing it to make sure across the ammo that I had, they were the same. just one of the, what I would assume would be the quality assurance checks that the company does before shipping it. And everybody across the board was, from round to round, perfect. There just were differences, and that's in the chart as well. I don't have velocity. Then we had 10% clear ballistics gel that we shot him into. We had 2 blocks of it. We actually had like 5 blocks there, but we used 2 blocks to do the testing with. Measured the expansion. On the chart here, it's got inches and millimeters for those of you who, are European, and then those of you who are correct. And then I have something here. I mentioned that who made the actual round itself, the projectile itself. Let's talk about what we were looking for in these bullets. So in 10% ballistic gelatin, that doesn't have to be 10%. I know they make 20%, and it really doesn't matter as long as it's the same across the board. 10% ballistic gelatin does not represent Garry's torso. It represents average human tissue. So that doesn't mean flesh. It doesn't mean muscle. It doesn't mean bone. It means the average person's average amount of tissue, all averaged together. The key to this ballistic gelatin is if it meets the standard, you can test ammo where you're at, and I can test ammo where I'm at. And in theory, we can compare the results, and the medium is close enough for us to get a comparison. Not that this is how far it goes in a person. Oh my God, it's got 18 inches of penetration. It'll go right through 8 people. No, that's not it. It's just the medium that has been selected. And it was selected because of averages. Anyhow, let's take a look. Before we get into that, what I'm looking for, and I get this from reading from experts, in 10% ballistic gelatin, 12 inches of penetration. You need that in order to penetrate 12 inches in gelatin to penetrate through hard parts of human beings. 18 inches is the opposite end, that beyond 18 inches in that gelatin is likely to have a lot of through and through wounds in a person coming out the other side. That's not as critical to me as not going in. I don't know what velocity it's going, if it comes out 18 inches or through a human being, but I know it isn't going the same speed it was going in. So it is much less dangerous. So I'm not saying it's not a concern, but not going deep enough to get into the good parts of shooting someone, that's a problem. So what I like to do, we take an 18-inch block, we shoot into it, we cut the first 12 inches off and throw it away. Now we just compare what's left. If a round went out of it, I'm not counting it. And if it didn't make it into it, I'm not counting it. So it's not quite exactly what we did. We just measured it and took everything under 12 inches and said, that's not great. And anything that went over 18 inches and said, that's also not great. Let's take a look at them one by one. First up on the list, Barnes Tac Xpd. Interestingly enough, this is the only non-plus P round across the whole spectrum of testing. 115 grain, overall length 1.1245 inches. I don't even know what the specs are that 9mm is looking for an overall length of a round. In one instance, I thought there might be something to it, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So when we shot it into 10% gelatin, what did we find? It went 11 7/8 of an inch in. So that's a no-go for me. It didn't make the 12-inch threshold in gelatin. I bet you if Barnes loaded that to plus P, they could squeak out an extra 1/8 inch. Don't know why they don't. Everybody else that uses or has used their bullet in the past in their own loadings, all run at plus P. It expanded to 0.6755 inches. That is 17.6 millimeters, so it has some pretty decent expansion, and they make the bullet themselves. See, something common here is the projectile, which is the Barnes X bullet, is commonly used by companies who make solid copper ammunition. All right, next up on my list, Supervel SCHP, solid copper hollow point, 115 grain. This one was the only one under 1.1 inches. It was 1.0900 inches, and that was across the board. So they're running a little shorter. I don't know if that increases the pressure, which maybe is why they get a little more ass end out of it. I can't tell you the velocity because, well, the chronograph didn't work, but it went 16 inches deep. That was the deepest of all of them. It expanded to 5.795 inches. So that is 14.72 millimeters. After we were done, we shot some other random rounds that we had into the remaining blocks, and most round nose were the only thing that expanded less than the Supervel. Not that the Supervel didn't expand. As you can see in the picture, the petals opened up and they just peeled themselves right on back. So we got something that went from, I mean, you figure like a 45 already starts at fucking 11 millimeters. So it got a little bigger, but it didn't leave a giant permanent cavity as the petals seemed to fold right back. Now, this round, I assume, uses the Barnes X bullet, but they don't say they use the Barnes X bullet. They don't say whose bullet they use, but when you look at it, it looks exactly like the X bullet. So they get some more penetration, probably from more velocity, but the problem is the round itself, the engineering in the piece of copper, doesn't keep the petals open at like, you know, a good 90 degrees to the direction of travel. Next up on the list, we have Black Hills Tac-XP, 115 grains, 1.1470 inches across the board, 4 overall length. It went 14 3/4 of an inch in depth of penetration, which I think is pretty good in that sweet spot. It opened to 0.6735 inches, aka 17.11 millimeters. Black Hills is known for high quality ammo, so seems to be a pretty good round. Next on the list, Corbon Dpx. Now, this was first generation Corbon Dpx. Brass case, not nickel plated, and I think they're on their 3rd or 4th. So this doesn't necessarily represent the ammo you can buy from them today. It was the Corbon that I already owned. 115 grains, obviously, 1.1305 inches. It went 14 inches of depth, 6.250 inches in diameter, as the picture shows. It uses the Corbon, or the Barnes X bullet. At least that first generation did. I'm pretty sure the second generation did too. I have no idea what they're doing now. The ammo that I had, the first gen, they all measured the same, but I've been told by people that I trust that the newest stuff coming out of the factory has some quality issues, so I can't promise that the results that I'm seeing in their first gen, you would see in the current generation of ammo. Next on the list, we have ASIM SDX, which does use the Barnes bullet. 115 grain plus P, 1.1335 inches. Got that 15 1/8 of an inch of penetration, so pretty damn good on the penetration. It opened up to 0.6750 inches, 17.5 millimeters if you're looking. So almost doubled its surface area. This is ammo that I carried for years. You can find a video on it here somewhere. This particular ammo isn't years and years old like that first video. Brownells one day sent me a notification. I've been on the list for a while. They had some in stock and I snagged some more up. So it is, I assume, the newest manufacturer that ASIM has. Next on the list, we had some Gorilla Silverback. 115 grain plus P, 1.1385 inches. Everything was uniform across every round. Here is the part that baffled me. And I can't say that it was because of velocity, because again, we weren't checking it, but its depth of penetration in 10% ballistic gelatin was 10 inches. That was surprisingly low. I can't tell you what the velocity was, but I suspect that it was lower, but it opened up wider than all the other ammo that we checked. It opened to 0.8060 inches, aka 20.47 millimeters. So it has fewer, bigger petals than the X bullet or the Defiant. and they opened up really wide and stayed wide. So I don't know if it was a drag from the pedals slowing it down, or if it started at a lower velocity, but it was well below the satisfactory mark on depth of penetration. And the last 115 grain we had was Defiant Tcx, 1.14515 inches across the board for their measurements. It went 14 5/8 of an inch deep, good spot for that, and it opened to 0.801 inches or 20.35 millimeters. So the Defiant uses their own bullet, which looks different than the rest. It too fell right into the sweet spot. The last one, we'll just throw this in here, not because it was necessarily a head-to-head comparison, but because I got some to try out, and that was the Defiant Tcx S, the S being subsonic, 135 grain, 1.505 inches across the board for overall length. It went 11 1/8 of an inch deep and opened to 0.7505 inches, so 19.06 millimeters, and it was subsonic. Later, we just wanted to try it out. We shot it out of a shield, so it only had like a 3-inch barrel, and its depth of penetration was like 3/4 of an inch less, and still opened up the same. Interestingly enough, that heavy bullet, 135 grains, out of a 3-inch barrel, still had greater penetration than the Gorilla, and it opened almost as far, like 19 millimeters to 20 millimeters. Like they both opened a lot. So that was a bit surprising that a slow subsonic bullet out of a short barrel gun would have greater penetration and open up as far as a plus P round out of a 4-inch gun. I was shocked. What does all that mean? Well, a couple of things fell by the wayside that, like, I was just going to take them off my list of I would carry them. Mind you, the bullet in your gun is the best bullet you got, but if you're going to buy some, buy the ones that do the things I want. So when we look at depth of penetration, rank them things top to bottom, I'll put that list right over here. Supervel at 16 inches, ASIM at 15 1/8, Black Hills at 14 3/4, Defiant at 14 5/8, and Corbon at 14 inches. Those all have a passing grade for depth of penetration. The Barnes, the Defiant Subsonic, and the Gorilla did not make what I would want for carry ammo. Mind you, the subsonic ammo, I don't know anyone would carry subsonic ammo as carry ammo anyway, but the Barnes and the Gorilla supersonic ammo did not make the grade either. Now, when we go over to expansion, that's a whole different concept. We have another list. At the very top, we have Gorilla at 0.8060 inches, Defiant Tcx at 0.801 inches, and Defiant Tcx S, the subsonic, at 0.7505 inches. I denoted those separately because they more than doubled their dimension. I thought that was pretty kick-ass. Then, in descending order, is the Barnes at 0.6755 inches, the ASIM SDX at 0.6750 inches, Black Hills at 0.6735 inches, and Corbon at 0.6250 inches. Those I liked a lot. And I also segregated the Supervel at 0.5795 inches because it didn't grow a whole lot. There was a period in there where those pedals opened up before they folded back on themselves. So while it did get bigger at some point in its travel, a good portion of it, those things were rolled back, and I didn't find that expansion to be desirable. So then the question you ask is, all right, Gary, so we've got all this information, and what does that tell you in the overall? Well, you're in luck. I got a chart. I took everything below the red on either penetration or expansion, and I chucked it, and it left this. And I think if you bought any of these rounds, you'd be doing great. Defiant Tcx, ASIM SDX, Black Hills Tac-XP, and Corbon Dpx, first generation. I think any of those would serve you great. Here's the only downside to those particular rounds. 3 of them, number 2, 3, and 4 on my list, use the Barnes X bullet, and it appears, and from what people inside the industry have told me that they know, that Barnes is not selling the projectile to third-party ammunition companies anymore. That you can buy it, Barnes still makes it for Barnes, and that's it. So if you want another brand of ammo, they either need to start making their own proprietary bullet like Gorilla and Defiant have done, or they have to stop selling a solid copper. Now, I've heard recently Barnes has been sold, so maybe they will change course there, because there are a lot of good bullets out there that use the Barnes bullet, a lot of good ammo that uses the Barnes bullet. So maybe they'll see the error of their ways. Maybe they'll start loading their own to plus P so they can get the penetration required. But that all remains to be seen. At this point right now, I'm just going to tell people to buy Defiant Tcx, because the bullets are being made with projectiles that they're making. Like right now, they're making all the parts, putting them together. And it's, of the solid copper bullets that you can get, it's one of the 4 that fits in there in that sweet spot of depth and expansion. So there you go. That's all I got for now. You guys take it easy. All right, so the other test I did, and this one was less scientific because I didn't really have a way to measure, was how well the bullets fed into a gun. So they all fed in a shield fine, shot fine. They all fed in my Smith or M&P fine. I did not get to shoot the Gorilla out of a Glock because I ran out of the Gorilla, but everything else shot in a Glock fine, and I bet you the Gorilla shot fine out of a Glock too. So what I did do was I took a full-size M&P, and I would load a round, not a round, I would put a magazine in with the round, and I would ease the slide forward on it so it wouldn't load. And then I would press the back of the slide to see if it, was enough to just push it all the way in there, just with like my thumb. And the shape of the bullets was interesting in that the Defiant Tcx has a much closer to a round nose bullet shape. That thing slipped right in there. Every other round with the Barnes bullet took a little more force, but it felt all about the same. The TCX subsonic felt like it had a little more pressure based off its bullet design. Like the hole is bigger, so it's hitting on like that edge of the hole on the feed ramp instead of like a ramp on ramp. And the Gorilla a little bit more than the subsonic TCXs for pressing it in there. Don't know if that really would have anything to do with reliability, but you can feel the different amount of pressures required for them to slide up and on in the feed ramp. I didn't have a way to like measure the amount of force. It was just something I did for my own entertainment, and I thought I'd pass it on to you.